It's not unusual to mooch off from anyone. It's not unusual to watch content from anyone. And when I see an Unlucky Tug video has been uploaded, it's not unusual, it happens all the time. I wanna die. Hey guys, it's me, Lisadal, back again. God, my voice is gone from that intro. But hopefully, that intro has given you a little burst of energy. I know it certainly gave me a little one. But yes, folks, Unlucky Tug has dropped his Season 3 retrospective of Thomas and Friends. Now, this one I'm most excited for, mostly because Season 3 is actually my favourite season. Now, it's got a bit of a love-hate relationship with the fandom. There are some episodes which people don't like, which some people think are okay, some people like, and some which people really, really like. So there's a bit of a love-hate relationship with Season 3 amongst the fandom, but I love it, and part of the reason is just because, I feel like nostalgia is something that, yeah, obviously, nostalgia bias is something which is kind of frowned upon a lot of the time when it comes to when it comes to something like looking back on childhood series, because it plagues your judgment. Honestly, I don't really care. If anything, I think nostalgia definitely helps you critique, because it helps you understand the mindsets a child might be in when they watch this, and because you've been there before. And so, if you grew up with something, you can understand more thoroughly where someone is coming from and why they might enjoy it. Even if it sometimes you find it's difficult to, it does plague your judgment ever so slightly. But it's just, everyone has their own kind of season. Oh, look who it is! Look who it is! Oh, what perfect intro. Hang on, let's move the camera a little bit down. Come on. Put the blanket over me. Sorry, nice and close. Yes, folks, and I've got the dog with me. Of course, you came at your perfect time. Hello. But yeah, just everyone has their own season that they really, really enjoy, really. So, unfortunately, you're a bit too young to remember any of the kind of Thomas things. You weren't even born. Well, neither was I, actually. I wasn't born, but I did actually. Okay, so here's kind of my history with Season 3. I had hand-me-down VHS, British VHS, bear in mind, of Escape and Other Stories, which is one of my favourite. Is still to this day one of my favourite VHSs. Just has some absolute bangers on there. Has my favourite Thomas episode of all time. I won't reveal what that is. But just so many bangers on that VHS. And as a kid, I was immediately hooked with just the stories and just the atmosphere. Everything just stuck out to me more than it did other shows. It gave me more of a kind of physical reaction. And so I'm really interested to see what he thinks of it. I think he'll be a bit more harsh on this than other seasons, because it is a bit of a wild card season, classic season. Because all I can say is Audrey hated this season. Audrey really didn't like this season. Because it was the first time they made slightly original. I say original. There were 2 original episodes. The others that weren't based on Railway Series stories were actually based on magazine stories. So that's the little that's the little backstory behind Season 3. I can't speak. Why can't I speak? But yeah, honestly, folks, strap in, because I'm interested. This is probably I'm most interested to probably see what he thinks of Season 3, especially considering my nostalgic history with this season. So hopefully he's not too harsh, but hopefully he gives it a fair assessment as well. But what else do we expect from Unlucky Tug? Because I've been really enjoying these season retrospectives, and it's allowed me to kind of formulate my own opinions on the seasons as well. Because sometimes when I look at stuff like that, I don't really it's difficult to kind of think like every single time you're actually watching it. Sometimes you're just watching it just for the enjoyment of it, rather than actually getting like a full opinion of it, which is healthy to watch stuff for entertainment some of the time, but it's also very healthy, I feel, especially as a reactor, to get a full opinion of it, which is so these videos are very helpful for me. And so I'm really sorry. I'm really looking forward to this. Like maybe it'll bring back some nostalgic memories, or like you know, you never know. You never know. So hopefully this is but all I can say is I hope this is another enjoyable one. Drop the video a like if you enjoy, subscribe to the channel too if you want to see more content like this, and let's go.
This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and you can participate in choosing what video comes to the channel next. Link in the description.
Dear Christopher, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it.
This intro's hype, you know. This intro's a lot of hype.
Season 3. This was the big one.
Was
the
it
season
though?
that redefined what Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was going forward.
Fair
Season
enough,
3
fair
is
enough.
probably the most nostalgic season for me personally.
Yeah,
as
same.
it was the one being marketed when I was a really little kid. All promotional material and VHS tapes at the time were of Season 3. This was a big season. Thomas's big comeback to British TVs after a few
5
years.
years. Yeah, it was
and
a
the first
5-year
brand new
hiatus.
season for the show's new international audiences. Quite a large task for the showrunners. So just how did they do it? And how does the season hold up? Let's dive in.
Sorry, I'm kind of adjusting the volume a little bit, just trying to find that sweet spot.
Get ready for a big chunk of information here, because a lot happened in the years between seasons 2 and 3. After season 2 in 1986, Thomas went on a bit of a hiatus for a few years. Each of the series' 2 leaders, creator and executive producer Britt Allcroft and director David Mitton, went off to fulfill other goals that they had in mind. David Mitton, along with Robert Cardona,
How are you
had
liking this
aspirations
wholesome
for a
content,
new
guys?
show with no involvement from Britt. A little show that would be called Tugs. Tugs came out in 1988 and was very similar to Thomas in the way it was focused on anthropomorphic vehicles with faces. However, the two shows couldn't have been more different. Tugs was, of course, focused on talking tugboats, and by the nature of it, was filmed with real working water sets. I have a whole video on the history of Tugs if you want more information.
It's because you know.
The main thing to take away from Tugs here is the amount of advancements and developments they made from a filmmaking perspective. The props were incredibly detailed, more so than anything on Thomas. They challenged themselves filming with these highly detailed working boat models in actual water, and using various weather conditions like fog and high winds and snow. They played a lot with times of day, changing out the sky backdrops and altering the lighting to make it look like sunset, or dawn, or calm nighttime.
I'm just gonna leave a little pointer here. I am trying to do like a series where I kind of react to Tugs, kind of, but that's more heavily edited, and I'm trying to kind of figure some stuff out for it. I promise I will let you guys know when it is in development. I just haven't gotten around to editing yet. I have people have given me their lines, so hopefully I should get to work on that fairly soonish. I don't know when it will, but I'm really excited. I hope you guys are excited for that. But I promise you, and also like Gamer and Peter Sam, like because I know you've recorded footage for it. It's still on the. I'm just on a massive hiatus. But anyway, I'm going a bit off topic. So
and not to mention the plethora of crash and explosion sequences that required well-timed pyrotechnics.
So
all
weird
of this
to
was
say
a
boat
significant
crash.
step forward for the model crew and their capabilities. Tugs did not take off though, and the amount of money Mitton and Cardona poured into it eventually led to Clearwater Features declaring bankruptcy, shutting their doors in 1990. Britt Allcroft, meanwhile, had started looking into marketing Thomas to other countries. In 1989, Thomas made its way to the United States via a variety show called Shining Time Station. The show was a half-hour long, featuring live-action segments with actors. A little magical man called Mr. Conductor, played by Ringo Starr, lived in the station, and would tell the children stories about an engine called Thomas, and all his friends on the island of Sodor.
Shining Time Station is a good show.
I'll tell you a
It's
story
a very good show.
about my friend Thomas. Here we go.
This would then transition to Thomas episodes, playing in between the live-action segments. Shining Time Station was a big success, even winning a Daytime Emmy Award in 1989.
Oh, wow.
America loved Thomas.
Yep.
Thomas also made its way to Japan a year later in 1990, where it was also a huge home run success. With 2 new huge markets to fulfill now, there was more demand than ever for an all-new season of episodes. And so, Season 3 was greenlit. With Clearwater Features now gone, Thomas would be produced under the name of Britt Allcroft's own company, the Britt Allcroft Company. She rehired David Mitten as director, and basically the whole crew returned. Fuji Television in Japan helped fund the production of the new season.
Oh,
and
really?
in return, footage for a special called Thomas and the UK Trip was produced exclusively for them. The special featured all new footage shot on the Season 3 sets that was released nowhere else. It was never aired outside of Japan, and has strangely never been given a proper DVD release over there, as far as I know anyway.
I wonder if it's an idea to actually dub that, but with English translation. I'm just wondering, that sounds like a kind of video idea, you know?
Season 2, Season 3 posed a challenge. There was a severe lack of Thomas-centric stories left to adapt from the original books. They opted to change things up a bit, having the season be half episodes based on Railway Series stories, and half all new original stories, most of which were based on magazine stories written during the hiatus period.
That's why I kind of don't consider it like original story. Like, I can't tell if they wrote like magazine stories specifically for the show, or if they're like purely written for magazine. Because actually, I think the one and only Andrew Brenner was one of, maybe he's going into detail here, but the one and only Andrew Brenner actually wrote a few of those. I think he wrote Henry's Forest. Well, it wasn't actually called Henry's Forest, but he actually wrote the original story.
Andrew Brenner,
who
funnily enough, would go on to be the
Speak
show's
of the
head
devil.
writer years later. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This new assortment
we're
of stories
way
gave
behind
the
that. We gotta
showrunners
go
more
through the
creative
dark years
freedom
first.
and allowed them to film more stories with Thomas and the already existing characters. Wilbert Awdry himself was famously very upset by this change.
And in the 3rd series, they thought that they could write my stories for them. The producers, somewhat big-headed.
He believed that Britt and co. had thought they
find
could write his work better than him, forcing Thomas into stories that he wasn't in originally, and writing stories that broke real railway practice. And famously, the episode...
actually, you know what? I'm going to let him play first, and I'm just going to say.
Forest, where Henry stops on the main line without alerting a signalman.
They've shown a lamentable ignorance of Rule 55. What responsible driver would stop?
I find this stance incredibly hypocritical. Because Awdry himself, you think of episodes like... Okay, great example. Sad Story of Henry. Where would you see passengers get out and push a train out of the tunnel? Or pull a train out of the tunnel? Like, where would it... Or build a brick wall in front of them? That was Awdry's brainchild, that story. That wasn't Britt and David. Like, Awdry himself knew when to actually make boundaries. Okay? He knew how to, like, draw the line between not realistic and charming. But for some instances, he had to make it unrealistic for the sake of charm and entertainment. This is exactly what David and Britt did, okay? And it's such a hypocritical stance, and quite frankly, it pisses me off.
Roadside lay-by.
Needless to say, this was the season that turned Wilbert Awdry sour on the show. The filming of Season 3 was quite bizarre. Unlike every other season where they filmed every shot needed on each set for all 26 episodes, this season's production was cut into 2 parts. The first 16 episodes were filmed as one batch, and the last 10 were filmed as a second batch, fans of which dubbed seasons 3A and 3B respectively. You might notice how Knapford is the big station in the 16 episodes of 3A, and then strangely in the 10 3B episodes, they use Tidmouth, and Knapford doesn't appear. You might also notice that the interior of Tidmouth sheds changes drastically between 3A and 3B. I'm not really sure why it was done this way. I think that big promotional prop display at Hamleys in London had something to do with it, and 3B was filmed after, but I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows? And lastly, one of the biggest changes of all was the voice talent. Ringo Starr did not return for season 3, which means a new narrator had to be found.
Here we go. My
Michael
boy Michael
Angelis took up the mantle of the UK narrator.
My boy
and became
Michael.
the show's longest narrator ever, holding the role all the way to the 16th season.
I want a scarf, I want a scarf. Rubbish, Percy. Engines don't wear scarves.
His narration's so
Engines with
weird.
proper funnels do. You've only got a small one.
In America, meanwhile,
There you
George
go, George.
Carlin, yes, the George Carlin,
Blow it out your ass!
became the voice of Thomas. Carlin took the role because he wanted to show a different side of himself to the world. A side that wasn't profane and overtly philosophical like in his stand-up. Carlin spoke very fondly of his work on Thomas.
I love
he
his.
loved that the
He
show
has such
didn't
a. I
top
said this
down-
before. He has such a way with words on Lucky Tug. Profane and philosophical. He has such a way with words. It's talent. It's genuine
The
talent.
kids or blatantly state the morals of their stories.
The morals of these stories were never jammed down the kid's throat. They weren't blatant. They
Thank
weren't,
you. Thank you
capital
very much.
letters. They were gently massaged into the framework of the show.
He thought it was a very smart show that treated its young audience with a level of intelligence,
Yep.
and was happy to be a part of it. Carlin stuck
Wagging your
around
tail,
for season
buddy.
4 as well, and went back and re-narrated seasons 1 and 2 for the American audience, replacing Ringo Starr's dubs.
Hello, Gordon. Is it tomorrow? Asked James. Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. Did you lose your way, Gordon? Said James.
I will say that's what I always find it very strange, the fact that Ringo Starr did US dubs. Like honestly, I don't know, just having an American voice over like seasons 1 and 2 is always very. It was think band think. I don't know, just having an American voice just kind of sounds more right to me for some reason for an American dub.
Gordon, is it tomorrow? Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. Did you lose your way, Gordon?
These are the dubs that I, personally, am more familiar with.
Yeah.
George Carlin was the voice of my childhood.
Perhaps it was instinct.
Season 3 had a rocky release,
Kinda overkill, but-
first coming out solely on VHS in England in 1991. That same year, it premiered on American TV via Shining Time Station, and then finally airing on British TV.
One thing I
in
will say about Shining Time Station, it does. Oh dear God! The episodes are so out of order, like ridiculously so.
92.
The whole shebang.
Season 2 was slightly darker and more gritty than what we had had previously. Season 3 was the show's big comeback year, and in a way, was a sort of return to form, trying to recapture that magic from the first season that everyone so fondly remembered. A return to the fantastical storybook-like visuals with focus on details in the foreground, and less of that guerrilla-style grit that Season 2 specialized in. The sets all look so much better than they ever have before, all now with working water and varied sky backdrops and lighting and weather. All the advancements the crew made from working on tugs definitely influenced
more kind of
what they did
saturated.
with Thomas this year and
To make it
beyond.
look more.
This is the first of
more
the
kind of
golden
fuzzy
years
and
of
warm.
Thomas, in my opinion. The show never looked so good. While there
Really?
was an attempt here to recapture that storybook magic of the first season, there simultaneously was also a move into different territory. Real-world territory.
Yep.
Many real-life elements start to come into play in episodes this year, Real-life events such as British Railways scrapping its steam engines are mentioned and set the stage for an episode. Real-life engines such as City of Truro and Flying Scotsman make appearances. Thomas continues its transition.
Flying Scotsman got so disrespected in this episode in Tender Engines. Just is it? It's the equivalent of having an ass cameo in Do you know what it is? It's like I just remembered. It's the equivalent of Joey being Al Pacino's butt double in that episode of Friends. That's what that is equivalent of. He's basically those tenders are Flying Scotsman's butt double. Okay?
From an all-storybook world to the real world. The classic seasons continue their trend of heavily focusing each season on a new part of the island. I've just realized
that. That's so funny, actually. That's really funny.
Season 2 was the Edwards Branch Line year, while Season 3 takes things to the coastline and explores that whole west side of the island. Harbors and docks and boats and beaches galore. I
love the Season 3 sets. I'm so nostalgic for them. Like, especially the harbor sets are they're just so warm. Like, because, can I tell you what? So, there's a harbour. So, if you guys live in the UK, then you'll know of Portsmouth Harbour, which me and my dad used to go to when I was younger. And there was like, I just love the bustling nature of it, just the unique kind of scale of it all, the unique different vessels that were there, and like all of industry. Because like, think about it, all industry like meets in a harbor in some way. Yeah, like you have like helicopters, so air, boats, sea, obviously, and you have roads and rail to some extent. So like all forms of transportation meet in a harbor in some way. And it's so cool. Just I love harbors, man. I remember especially like I used to love them, like especially as a kid. I had this kind of obsession with harbors. So yeah, it's why I'm nostalgic for like just the aesthetic of Season 3. Like it's just so, again, like he said, it's never looked so good.
3, as Duck's Branch Line, aka the Little Western, gets heavy focus. Part of me thinks they focused this season so heavily by the sea is because it was right off of Tugs. They knew how to handle water now, and had so many props from that show at their disposal to reuse.
Oh my god,
it was like they still had that itch to keep doing seaside stuff because they never got another chance. Which, hey, I'm not complaining about.
One thing I will say is it also, you think of the seaside, it's a very kind of wholesome, very bright kind of location. You kind of, if you think it's like, you associate it with like summer holiday, blue sky, blue ocean, kind of pleasing like sands, like that kind of thing. You associate like the seaside and like and like just sea with kind of this wholesome material that the show goes for, and like that the season goes for, I should say. And what makes it so brilliant to me is the fact that there are also episodes in the show that contrast with that tone. And when the show does contrast, I will get to this in a moment, because you know how he goes into like best episode of the season? I think there's one unanimous winner here. And I'm not going to say what it is, but I have a feeling I know which episode he's going to pick. So, I will talk about it more when we actually get to that episode. But there's one episode I know he's going to talk about. Okay, so yeah.
These coastline sets.
But it's just kind of. But my point is, you associate the seaside with this kind of tone, with the kind of tone that I feel like the saturated colors make it more. The real saturation of like colors are very the kind of warmness of this season. I think it adds like contrast to when it goes away from that, I think.
That's of the whole series. In the last video, wholesome. I described Season 3 as an adventurous season, and I still stand by that. The stories all feel so much bigger this time around, putting these characters through trials where they really have to prove themselves, like braving a flood, tightroping a collapsing bridge, A landslide that destroys the workings. A storm that devastates the island. A bee swarm breakout in the big station that causes mass panic.
No.
Rescuing a village that gets snowed in after a massive
It's not
blizzard.
killer bees, okay? We're not in 2020 anymore.
Or saving a fellow engine from certain doom. The characters feel like real heroes this year, more than they ever have before.
Roll credits.
But the season does not just feel big, as in it harboring big events. Season 3 feels big in terms of tone and themes, furthering those questions that Season 2 posed. What is the next step in this dieselization plot? In the episode Tender Engines, Diesel tells Gordon that steam engines haven't much time left.
But I'm afraid that no amount of tenders will save you in the end. We diesels are taking over.
Then we start to see the direct effects of that in the episode right after, Escape, where we witness an engine in line for scrapping.
But what you doing? Escaping. From what? Scrap.
But not even just that. We also get episodes like All at Sea, where Duck ponders the world beyond.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my favorite episode of all time. And do you know what? It's something I can't even explain. It's just, like, this is one of the episodes on the Escape and Other Stories VHS, but I just have such a special connection with this episode that, like, part of me does feel like, it's a bit difficult to describe, but part of me does feel like, it's because of the emotional, it's just how it, like, strikes emotions with me. There's real wonder with this episode, I feel. Like, everything about it just feels so wonderful, like, about the world. Like, you, actually, one thing I did, I actually made, like, a Railway series. A while back, I actually made, like, a Railway series, rewrite. I wrote a Railway series version of All at Sea, as a matter of fact. And, so I will try and I will leave a link to that, actually, in the description, if you guys want to check it out. But, yeah, I made it on DeviantArt, so, but this episode, just the emotional connection I have with it, like, just the grandeur of, like, the harbour sets, and just the whole rush of, like, the emergency, and that kind of thing, and the ending as well, it's so full of wonder, and it's a kind of unwritten thing. It's not something easy. Wonder is not something that is easy to do. All at Sea provides me with wonder, and it provided me with wonder as a child. And that's something that's something no other episode in this entire show represents, like, connects me with. Like, do let me know, because I do wonder, like, about doing, like, a top 20 Thomas episodes, in all honesty. I do wonder about doing that. Like, I need to kind of get a full, like, perspective together, to be honest, but that is an idea.
On the horizon. What is he meant to do here that he can't do out there? What is a sentient steam engine's purpose?
I wish I could sail to faraway lands. Engines can't go sailing, snorted Percy,
What are the
because
limits?
engines can't float. Duck still had his dreams.
Season 3 really was the start of this go big or go home.
Another thing is, it's kind of like, there's a real big kind of life lesson attached to All at Sea. It's kind of like, no matter where you go in life, kind of, you will always kind of want something, you will always kind of want something more out of it, but living the life for what you have is also important. That's the kind of message I get from it. And it's one of the best messages in the entire series. Like, just that whole lesson of kind of like, you will always want more out of life. And that's kind of something, it's something so true. And especially considering I'm an actor, which is it's a very difficult business to throw myself into. I really relate to that on a chord, but it gives me kind of comfort, like, seeing that ending, especially, that there is life kind of that it persuades me to make the most out of what I've got. It's very, I just want to make a video essay on why All at Sea is my favorite episode, because honestly, I'm not sure if you guys will watch this, but if you do, then that is
that is why All at Sea is my favorite episode. I just have this connection with it, okay? Like, and just the life lesson that it teaches me. I can go forth remembering what that episode taught me.
Attitude that the rest of the Golden Seasons relished in, greatly emphasized by the huge advancements in the cinematography and that new orchestral score.
Yes.
The score of Season 3 onwards is worthy of praise. Prior to this, Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell stuck to a synth score, very of the time in the 80s. This season onwards, they changed their instruments and started producing more orchestral sounding themes, like music you'd hear in movies.
I wouldn't say movies, because it's not quite as grand as that. That's why there's like orchestral covers. Oh, I love the Harbour theme! I love the Season 3 Harbour theme. I love it so much. This is very movie-like, to be fair. But I love the Season 3 score. It's so good.
This was a change that technically first happened in Tugs,
It did,
and it
yeah.
carried over to this season.
I could listen to Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell's score all day. Honestly. He's actually
Yet
active
another
in the fandom.
piece
Actually,
of Tugs.
do you know he's active in the fandom? He's actually, Mike O'Donnell's actually very active in the fandom. Well, not in the fandom, but like he still does. He's active in making children's music. He has a YouTube channel.
This production that helped improve Thomas's future aesthetic.
Oh.
Tugs and Season 3 go hand in hand with each other in my opinion. I see so much
She
of
loves
both
seeing me
in each
happy.
of them.
She loves seeing me happy, my dog. And this is making me so happy.
But at the same time, Season 3 has its share of smaller slice-of-life stories too. Like a
Fairness.
garden party at an orchard, Percy wanting to wear a scarf, Gordon gets muddy, or Donald befriending a duckling. Unlike the previous two seasons, Season 3 is very loose in its structure. There is no real overarching plot or major connecting through lines. All the stories are mostly episodic, meaning you can watch a lot of these out of order and there wouldn't be many continuity issues, which is something you couldn't do with Seasons 1 and 2. However, I think this loose structure and the varying tones of the stories makes Season 3 a rather enticing viewing experience. I envy people that watch this season for the first time, because you never know what's going to happen next. Will the next episode be some small slice-of-life story where Thomas helps Bertie? Or will it be some dire, crazy event where the engines have to scramble and rescue everyone as a landslide devastates the area? Season 3 is truly a roller coaster ride.
One thing I will say is I feel like it's more like those kind of action-packed episodes are more apparent as the series goes in the latter half of the season. So I definitely think there is like a saturation of those kind of episodes in the latter half. That's one thing I will say. So yeah, I don't know. Characters who oh yeah, who's going to be the MVP?
Season 3 is unique
I'm
in a
putting
way.
a prediction. I've got money on Douglas. Like I've got money on the like the Scottish Twins or even Duck's a shout. Duck did quite a bit in this season. Because I don't think it'll be one of the main Steam team, in all honesty. I don't think it will be. It might be Thomas, if I'm honest. It might be Thomas, but Thomas or James. Like, if it is going to be one of the Steam team, it's either Thomas or James.
That all the characters have something to do this year.
I was about to say, or Percy, or Gordon. But in all honesty, he's just emphasized my point. Everyone does something here. You read my mind, Tug. Oh my god.
From characters and gave focus to ones that were sort of glossed over in Season 1. As a result, characters like Henry or Toby didn't really do all that much. That's not the case this year. Everyone has a role to play. When it comes to who did the most stuff this year, Percy again wins the #1 spot.
Really?
With a grand total of 7 lead roles.
Okay.
Duck shockingly comes
MVP,
in
though.
second with 6.
7
Remember when he was a
episodes,
main
though.
character? And Thomas and James tie
Duck,
for third
6.
with 5 each. The season is unique in the sense that it took the characters as written by Audrey and built off of them. This is the year we started seeing new sides to these faces, and what makes them tick. New personality traits and interests that would go on to define them in later years.
You look as bright and cheerful as my red
Just...
Of course, I can't talk about every character.
I am, James.
So I'll
I
just
am,
go over
James.
some
I'm
more
loving
of the
this.
standout ones. Thomas got a bit of a change-up this year. Season 3 showed a newer, nicer side to Thomas. The Britt Allcroft version of Thomas, if you will, which somewhat contrasts his dicky personality in the 2 seasons before, where he thought of no one else but himself.
If we hurried across the viaduct, it might collapse, and then you'd have no passengers at all. What would you do then? Run my train on time, for one thing.
But what about my passengers? Asked Thomas. Don't worry.
It's a more
they'll be
mature
looked
kind of
after.
Thomas, and
I
I feel like it's good because it's character development. I feel.
We see this slight change as character growth.
Thank you.
We're moving slowly away from the younger, selfish Thomas to a slightly older Thomas who puts his wants aside to help bigger causes. Multiple times this season, Thomas and Percy work together to help a bigger cause, such as saving the mail train or rescuing a snowed-in mountain village. He's still the same old Thomas, though, mopey or grumpy about whatever minor inconvenience he has.
I won't be able to say Happy Thanksgiving to all my friends.
Oh no! Screw this episode. Oh my god! Oh screw! Why is there a Thanksgiving episode here? I don't understand.
Don't worry, said Percy kindly. I'll do it for you. It's not the same side, Thomas.
But there's definitely some change occurring. Thomas is growing, becoming more of a wholesome character. Thomas's friendship with Birdie was explored quite a bit this year, featuring 2 episodes focused on them. It also very much further explored his friendship with Percy, who kinda has become the show's breakout character. Percy has gotten more leads than Thomas 2 seasons in a row at this point. He's kind of hijacked the show. What Season 3 did for Percy was make him the show's little hero. Most every Percy story is some big adventure he has, which contrasts to him being the smallest.
Percy
of the
is going to
fleet.
be the MVP
a big
of
punch
this, isn't
in a
he?
small package, if you will. And this continues to be a trend.
One thing
in
I will
season-
say is I wish Thomas Percy and the Dragon came before Percy's Promise, like in episode order. Like it kind of comes, it's kind of a little bit contrasting that Percy's a coward when seeing a dragon right after he's just plowed through a rain thing too.
It's moving forward. Henry got a lot of love this year. He only had 2 starring roles, which isn't much, but his main episode, Henry's Forest, did quite a lot for him. In this episode, we saw a new
I
side
love this
to
episode
Henry,
so much.
a side that loves nature and slowing down a bit.
Henry always felt better for being here.
Because it's
He
what makes him
couldn't
such a
really explain
relatable
why,
character.
But his driver understood. It's peaceful, he said to Henry.
It made him
It's
more than just
peaceful.
one of the grumpy big engines, and totally separates him from Gordon.
I do kind of
Henry-
prefer Michelangelo's delivery of that line. It's peaceful, he said to his driver. But then one night, everything changed. Like, I just prefer that delivery. I grew up with Michelangelo's for this season, if you can't tell. Like, it's why he's my favorite narrator.
He is not just a green Gordon. He's far more layered and appreciative of the world around him. And it's this side of Henry that later seasons would go on to tap into more. Donald and Douglas had a pretty good year. Season 3 is interestingly the only year that the twins are split up and treated as their own individual characters, each starring in their own episode totally separate from the other. Donald got Donald's Duck, in which Douglas only appears in the background, and Douglas got Escape, in which Donald does not appear whatsoever. Thinking about it, I don't think Donald and Douglas actually share dialogue with each other once the entire season. That's
No,
kinda
they
weird.
don't.
We learn that Donald is kind of a joker. He doesn't pull punches, and is very blunt.
I'm Great Western, and I...
Quack.
What? Ye hear?
What?
Quack, quack, ye go.
Sounds
Sounds
like
like
ye
ye
an
an
egg
egg
laid.
laid. Now wheesht and let an engine sleep. But cars can be troublesome. And say no more, Duck. It's a pity, but the wee engine'll just have to learn for himself.
Douglas, meanwhile,
I quite
has
like George Carlin's Scottish accent. I think it's quite good.
his own little arc. After learning of what Edward did to save Trevor back in Season 2, he returns the favor and saves Oliver from Scrap.
He has a bit
Douglas
of a
is the more
phobia of
heroic
Scrap.
of the twins. I really love that
He's
this
the William
season didn't treat them
He's the
both
William Wallace of the series.
as one, like later seasons do. It totally saw each of them as their
Sorry for
own
the phone.
individual characters. Speaking of twins, Bill and Ben had a great year as well, getting 2 episodes that they starred in.
I love their 2
I didn't
episodes,
talk much about them in the Season 2 video because there wasn't much to say. They're twins, they're mischievous. That's about it. We got a lot more this time around, seeing them in different lights. Literally, in a different light too, as each of their starring roles utilize them in brand new locations we've never seen them in before. We got an episode where they fall out with each other.
They're like the equivalent, Bill and Ben. The equivalent of, like, 2 Hollywood, like, actors who had just made it big time, and they've kind of, like, and they're going to these exotic kind of brand new locations. And they just can't handle the spotlight, so they go back to their wholesome kind of roots, and they find out that's where they're kind of most at home. Like, I do really like their kind of development, how they're kind of most at home in the quarry. And
another where they act quickly and rescue workmen from a catastrophic rock slide.
I sound like such a nerd
The only
there.
character that didn't pop up this year in any regard was Daisy, who was very strangely absent. The story goes that Rick Sigelkow, the producer of Shining Time Station, had issues with Daisy. He didn't like the fact the only prominent female engine character had all this excess makeup on her. He thought she was somewhat sexist. So her episodes never aired on Shining Time Station, and she was sort of swept under the rug in favor of Mavis, who was introduced this season and starred in her own 2-parter. Mavis, I think, is a great new character. She's a wonderful foil to Toby. This young, feisty, thinks-she-knows-everything Diesel contrasts to this old geezer steam engine who has seen it all. Combined with Toby's notorious sense of humor, got some good comedy gold here.
Having trouble, Mavis? Chortled Toby. I am surprised.
Good dynamic.
Gosh! Freight cars, he grumbled, should be where you want them, when you want them. Said Mavis and...
Oh, Tug! Oh, thank you, Tug. One of your finest. One of your finest. That's brilliant.
Away. He says I have no business jauntering down Toby's line. Toby's a
Oliver was also introduced this year, in the famous episode, Escape. Oliver probably has the coolest debut story of any character in the show. He's introduced in the sorriest looking state ever, running away from certain doom. And only with a helping hand from a friend indeed, does he reach his safe haven. I appreciate that even though we are meant to look up to Oliver as this magnificent character that braves such an escape, he is also totally and completely flawed. He lets his prestige get to his head and totally embarrasses himself, bringing him down to the same level as all the other
Chuck's
characters.
RKO Oliver out of
No one is
nowhere.
perfect, even the ones that seem the most invincible. They are all equal. Truly wonderful lessons this show teaches. Other new characters include Toad, Oliver's brake band, who strangely has no dialogue, and Bulgy, a one-off shady double-decker bus that gets his just dues. I believe the MVP award of Season 3 rightfully goes to... Duck.
Yep.
If Season 2 was the year of Edward, then Season 3 is the year of Duck. Duck is in the most different place at the end of the season than where he started. Starting as just the station pilot as normal, and ending as the main runner of his own branch line in a completely new part of Sodor, alongside Oliver. Duck really came into his own this season, as we see all new aspects of his character unfold. We knew from last season that Duck is very proud of his heritage, and is a tough stands-no-nonsense type. And episodes this year, like All at Sea, start to break down that barrier, and we see what makes Duck tick. Duck loves the ocean, and is endlessly fascinated of what lies beyond the horizon line.
Do you go to the horizon? Asked Duck. Yes, and beyond. Duck sighed.
As a steam engine, he's stuck to his rails and has no idea what's out there. It's only appropriate that in this same season, Duck is promoted to run his own branch line.
One thing I've noticed, editing-wise, he's cut the instrumental from the speech, from the dialogue. I'm wondering if that's kind of like a new kind of software change, or if that's interesting.
And which, appropriately, runs along the coast. I really wish All at Sea and Donald's Duck swapped places, so they would have established Duck's love for the sea earlier in the season, and thus making him getting his branch line all the more rewarding. By the end of Season 3, Duck truly is one of the main characters, with a lot more going on below the surface than meets the eye.
Feels. Yep.
I think my episode choices for this season are probably going to be the most predictable ones yet.
Yes.
This year's standout episode rightfully goes to, you all know what it is, Escape.
Oh my! Oh, I was not expecting that in the slightest. Tug, you've done the impossible. You've surprised me. In all seriousness, though, it is a great episode. It's a really, really good episode.
There's no denying this episode is one of the greats of the whole series. It has some incredibly striking visuals, heavily focused on dark shadows and contrasty lights, reinforced by a soundtrack inspired by Indiana Jones and The Great Escape. I actually think Escape is one of those episodes where the adaptation plays out a little better than the original story.
Yeah.
The original story is tied to Douglas being a stowaway to Sodor, something that was established in a previous book.
You meant Douglas.
So he returns the favor and helps stow away another engine there.
I won away here with Donald, but I'd have been feared to do it on my own.
Well, that information wasn't exactly translated to the show. So instead now, Douglas learns about what Edward did for Trevor, and decides that one good turn deserves another. This little scene with Edward is a nice setup to the action plot, and adds some continuity between the seasons.
It does.
I've described Escape before as a gateway episode. The plot of this story is tied to real-life events, a time period in England where British Railways scrapped all their steam engines in favor of diesels. Oliver, one of these steam engines, tries to escape from his doom. Kids intrigued by this story will want to look further into why Oliver ran away, and thus indulge themselves in some real-life history. Escape is truly one of the greats of the series, and is totally deserving of being in a top 10 ever placement. I highly recommend everyone to check this one out.
Okay, there's also a little kind of hidden message, I feel, with Escape, that I get from this. And it's that, because you look at the bright colours of Season 3, and how it contrasts with this episode, because there's no other episode like this in the entire season. Think about it. This episode, with the dark, like, shadowy kind of thing, and like, the dark shadows, and, like, the dark atmosphere, everything, it contrasts with this saturated, bright and colourful, fuzzy world that Sodor created initially, and through Season 3. And that contrast really gives me a kind of life message that life isn't all about those kind of fuzzy, about those kind of friendly kind of Sodor clouds. It's also a much meaner kind of darker world, and it's difficult to like push through sometimes. Like as shown, but Oliver is almost like a struggling kind of. He's seen some serious trauma. He's seen kind of what life has thrown at him. But Oliver is there, Douglas, in a better position than he is. You think of that line, are you a fat controllers engine? I am proud of it. You think of that, and you think of that, and he's in a kind of fortunate kind of position, but he helps someone else get to those kind of fuzzy clouds, showing that kind of we can make life better for just a little bit of kindness and a little bit of like heroism can help people get to that kind of safe haven, get to that kind of safe haven that is Sodor, make people's lives that much better, which is reflected in the following episode, and sequence. How Oliver just has a much, much better life, effectively. And yeah, it's difficult to adjust, but he does it. And I just love how impactful and how true this message is. He's had life throw constant curveballs at him, and he's come out of it so much stronger. So like, it's like if we were all a bit like Douglas, and we helped others out upon occasion, then this would be a much better world. We'd kind of live in that world of where Sodor has that, with those kind of brightly colored saturated colors to kind of make and kind of stray further away from those dark colors of the other railway represented in Escape. So I think you guys see what I'm saying here, but that's a kind of nice little hidden message which I get from it, which is why it's so clever how Audrey made the episodes feel, just how he uses trains as kind of representations of the human condition, and like trains is the whole circumstance, and like just how human they feel. Like, he takes that so literally, and that's the kind of hidden message I get from the story of Escape. So, and it's emphasized with the colorful nature of season 3. So I think you guys get what I'm saying, but that's kind of a little extra note which I want to add.
I also think All at Sea is worthy of being the runner-up for its grand message.
Thank you.
The message that it's important to accept who you
Tug,
are
I love you
and
so much.
understanding
Thank
what your
you.
strengths are, despite your limits. It doesn't matter what's out there, because home is where your friends are.
Yep.
My pick for worst episode of the season goes to One Good Turn. I don't think it's a bad episode. I like that it builds Bill and Ben's characters a bit, but it's just the circumstance of how the story happens is so silly. The two fall out because one got in the way of the other going onto the turntable. It's so insignificant. I feel like the story would have made more sense.
I do kind of like the I do really kind of like the what am I saying? I do really like just how how they have a little like Mexican kind of standoff with the good, the bad, the ugly kind of music in the background. Like, I do really like that.
Each other to derail
I think
and
it's a
block the
humorous
yard or
episode.
something. It's a nice episode though, with a nice ending, but it's the one episode of this year's batch that I do kind of roll my eyes at. I kind of wish One Good Turn and Heroes swapped their inciting incidents. Like, having Bill and Ben completely embarrass themselves at the harbor and delaying Gordon's train, getting in trouble with the Fat Controller, which causes them to blame each other for it all happening, only to make up in the end when they have to haul a train together. And Heroes has the silly insignificant incident that makes the two look like they're incapable of working as a team because they let silly things come between them, only to show they can step up to the occasion when disaster strikes the clay pits.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought. I think the episode that sums Season 3 up in a nutshell is Henry's Forest. This episode has it all. It has all the impressive camera shots and model work and beautiful score and the emotional beats that Season 3 is known for. It's also the episode I point to the most often when I talk about how the TV series unearthed new sides of the characters the books never delved into. Something Season 3 really pushed. It's also infamously the episode that Audrey criticized the most.
Really hypocritical.
Which again sort of sums up where the showrunners' minds were at this year. Henry's Forest is a beautiful episode, and I think sums up what Season 3 is all about perfectly.
I do like how he paces his narration.
The word I would use to describe...
I do love how he paces his narration to fit the score.
Describe Season 3 is big. This was Thomas's biggest season yet. Everything about it screams go big or go home. Every character had something to do this year. The stories are more adventurous than ever. The sets are way more impressive. The soundtrack is more orchestral. The morals of some stories are quite grand and pose considerably big questions for its young audience. Season 3 was Thomas's big comeback season, and they came back swinging. Season 3 was the grandest step in the show's quality, and it really has Tugs to thank for that. So many sequences and stories that occurred this year wouldn't have been possible in the previous seasons. I really doubt a landslide sequence in Season 2 would have looked this impressive. Season 3 walked, so the later, even more impressive seasons could run. This was the start of a golden era. Gone is the toy-like charm of the 80s, and end with the real-world view of the 90s. The island...
It really fits with the kind of demand, I feel. Because you think of, like, in the 90s, you kind of associate it with those kind of bombastic, blockbuster kind of movies. Yeah, you had those in the 80s, but I feel like they're more and more apparent in the 90s with, like, the advancements in technology and, like action films were extremely popular. And, like, also, like, with children's media as well, like, the Disney Renaissance. You think about kind of like how much bigger and grander and more cinematic those films are in comparison to their other films. This just reflects, like, especially considering it's early 90s, this reflects just kind of a change in kind of demand, I feel, for this kind of adventure, this kind of longing for kind of adrenaline and kind of thrill in the 90s. Like, that's kind of my perspective on kind of like the demand and things. So I think it's interesting how it reflects the time period.
The Sodor feels more real than ever. And despite some of the criticism it's garnered,
definitely plays
it's
a part.
very easy for me to see why so many people claim Season 3 is their favorite season. As my good friend Zio would say,
Season 3 aesthetic wins every time.
Love the end use of the Thomas anthem at the end.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed my review of Season 3. This was my favorite of the retrospectives so far. I can definitely feel that excitement in me tingling as we approach the really good seasons. Season 4 is the next one, and man oh man, I cannot wait. This is the part of the video where I would go over all the updates to the channel, but I actually don't have much to go over this time. I do have a TikTok open now where I've been posting my Thomas Debunked videos, which just hit 10k followers. So thank you all for that. Go follow me there if you haven't already. Speaking of Thomas Debunked, we're nearing the end of the first batch of shorts I produced for it. I originally made 15 of them, and 13 are currently uploaded. There may be a short hiatus while I work on the next batch, so just a heads up there. Once again, a big thank you to all my patrons who voted for this season retrospective to be the next video. Next week I will put up a new poll where you can all vote on the next big video for the channel. So pledge today if you'd like to take part in that.
Do let me know if you want to start Patreon.
Thank you all so much for watching.
It's a very real
always.
possibility at this point.
Your support is always appreciated. See you all in the next one, folks. Bye-bye.
I'm sorry if you couldn't quite hear me, but if the audio's a bit off, but... Oh yeah, same. This is my favorite one so far. I know... Okay, physically I think there are better seasons, but Season 3 is my favorite, and it's actually... This video has actually helped me rediscover why, and that's the beauty of these videos, is they help me reignite that passion. They help me relive that nostalgia of loving Thomas for what it is. And I'm just so grateful for Doug for making this, because Season 3 is my childhood, and I love everything about it. Like, just the grandeur of it, just how nostalgic it feels. Everything I love about it. Everything I love about Thomas is in this season, and why I've been hooked with it for so long. I get it. It's kind of like, it's not the best. It's got some problems. Like, some of the storytelling is a little bit off. It doesn't quite have the charm of Audrey's storytelling. But it's just so... It's too good for words. Like, I love it so, so much. And... I just love the Unlucky Tug, really. Just how he reignites that and finds new stuff to talk about, effectively. It's talent, you know. It's talent with that kind of, showing that kind of mindset. And guys, I love these videos. I really do love, like, the Unlucky Tug's content. It's entertaining. It's really, really entertaining. And I'm glad you guys have come along to enjoy this with me, because this is the most personal one for me. And hopefully I also made some interesting points which you didn't actually know before, which you didn't actually think about before. But I just want to thank you guys. I really want to thank you guys for joining me. Yeah, I know I'm not the unlucky Tug. I know I'm not the unlucky Tug, but I do. His content is fabulous. Okay, so go subscribe to him, and please subscribe to me. Please, again, I would like to know your opinions on me starting a Patreon, because honestly, I love doing what I do. I really love doing these. And yeah, they're not as talent-filled or as creative as some of the other stuff I do, but I do enjoy doing them, and you guys really enjoy them too. So thank you guys so much. So please do let me know if I should start a Patreon, and what you guys would like to see on it, what I can do for you guys. Please let me know. Pretty please. But that was season 25 retrospective. Jesus Christ, it's not that. Season 3 retrospective by The Unlucky Tug. Thank you guys very much for watching. Drop the video a like if you enjoy. Subscribe to the channel too if you want to see more content like this. And subscribe to The Unlucky Tug as well. But I'll see you guys next time. Cheerio!